Thank you very much, Bettina, for such an inspiring speech. I really like the change in view that your daughter went through and the support that she provided you when she got older. I'm really looking forward, and I hope that my son can do that in the future for me. Thank you. So I'll leave the floor now for Gladys to moderate the discussion.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. What a great talks and inspiring experiences. So now is the time that we have the opportunity to ask questions to the speakers. So all of you are invited to the microphones, to get closer to the microphone, identify yourself, and ask questions. Yes, please, go.
My name is Els Joris, and I work for Shell as well. I think you forgot one lesson, lesson 11. Do not underestimate yourself. And I do see that a lot in the industry, and I was talking to some students here as well. When we see a job description and we fit 50% of the bill, we will normally not go for it because we don't fit 80% of the bill. So please, if it's 50%, it's good enough, and go for it. Because that's what I did, and I got the job I wanted. But when I read the job description, and when I still read it today, I think, oh my God, but it worked out, and I'm loving it, and I can do it. So that would be my lesson 11. And about the dressing, I use that in my benefit, because the first thing they do see that is I'm wearing a short skirt, which I regularly do in the office. Once they speak to me and they hear me, they forget about that. And they do, I hope, take me serious when I have something to say. So you can also use it as something that people recognize you about. So.
Okay, I think that is referred to stereotypes, and so we can ask Susan, for example, a question. So for how long do you have to pay attention to these stereotypes? I mean, because you were recommended, like, work professionally. Because maybe some others can look at you from a different perspective. So that is because we have stereotypes. So, for example, for you, that you are giving this recommendation, for how long the community should keep thinking about how to work because these stereotypes. Can you comment on that?
That's a tough one. We'll both talk to that.
We need to
I think it's I started working many years ago, and so there were not many women at Texas Instruments. I told you that was my first job, particularly computer scientists in the group, and so I stood out already because I was female. And then because of the dressing thing that I told you about. I think nowadays it's not as bad because there's so many more of us, which is good. I mean, you don't... my goal in life, and so for the men, I know y'all will never do this in the audience, but my goal in life is for there to always be a long line at the women's restroom at work, because that means that we've made it, because there's so many women that we're having to wait to be able to get into the restroom, right? And so the line's getting longer, which is good, but it's not down the hallway yet, which is what I want. But anyway, to get back to the question, I don't think it's as much of an issue nowadays as it was earlier, because there's so many more of us, and people are used to there being women in the hallways, and we all look different, we dress differently, and so we don't stand out like I think I did when I first started my career.
Thank you, Susan. So I will like to give a recommendation to everybody. If we can kind of summarize, so we will give opportunities to everybody to ask questions and also to bring opinions. Bettina, do you want to comment on that? No? Yeah?
Same topic. On the same topic again. I would agree that things have changed, that we have more women in the hallways, so in that sense one doesn't feel quite so exotic anymore, and that was certainly the case in the past. But I do think I still sit in a lot of teams, especially leadership team meetings, where I very clearly know that I find it difficult to perform at my best when I'm the only woman in the room. And I think a lot of the work we have been doing in this context points towards the fact that once you kind of jump across this 30% barrier, then a minority stops feeling like a minority. And I do see it indeed in those meetings where the mix is better. You just feel more relaxed, you just feel more easy. There is always a kind of somebody you can look at in certain circumstances, and you have an immediate companionship. And yeah, as I said, for me, it's about aspiring for every individual to be able to perform at their best. And for that, we need to feel included. And somehow there is a secret there that I haven't quite cracked yet, how we as women also can help men to to do that better.
So from the audience, please stand and ask questions if you want. Please get closer to the mic so all of us can hear your question. Go for it.
Hello, thank you for your talks. I wanted to ask whether it's been necessary for you to adopt a bullish masculine attitude to be taken seriously in the workplace, or whether you felt that you could be more yourself, more feminine, or whether they just wouldn't take you seriously in that case.
You go.
Okay, I go first. I don't think so. I think it's just not in my nature. I'm more of an introvert person, so I get my energy and my strengths more out of my internal reference systems. So I will rather withdraw than adopt and model a behavior that doesn't work for me. I probably have had one or two situations in my career where I very consciously went into a meeting and I said, and today I'm going to prove to them that I'm smarter than them or better than them or whatever. And then I was ruthless. So, but it was very conscious and it had nothing to do with me. It was simply a role play and a flexibility of style that I think we should, despite everything I've said now, we should still have.
Thank you.
So personality-wise, I'm the opposite, but you probably figured that out. I'm an extrovert, and so I don't think I had. I know I didn't have to change myself to interact with men and women at work, or in a work situation. I was more the other way, where I have to be conscious to shut up, because it's my natural tendency to talk, and I'm very good at talking louder if I think somebody's not really listening and understanding, so my volume increases, and I'll interrupt rudely, and I've been told that I interrupt rudely, but that I think it's more of a personality style than because I'm a female. I don't think so. So I don't think I've had to change myself, just like you haven't changed yourself. But you do have to learn your own strengths and weaknesses to deal with others on the team. And I think that's what it's taken me some time to learn. One of the things that I've done with a lot of my team members recently is we took this kind of personality test, and we all, with an outside coach, and we all shared each other's personality. And it was eye-opening to me. Eye-opening, because you read about your own strengths and weaknesses, and you're talking to an external person so they can be very honest, and you see what your team's strengths and weaknesses are. And I suddenly realized I'm asking this person on my team, what do you think right now? Like you were asked, before you leave the room, what do you think? And this individual cannot operate that way. He has to have time to go think, to mull, to do. You ask me a question, I'll give you an answer right away. And if I was wrong, I'll tell you tomorrow I was wrong, but I'll just tell you. He has to think about it. And so, different personalities regardless of gender, I think.
Very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question for Susan. So during your pregnancy, you have some issues, you have to stay home, and then you manage to keep your weekly meetings going. What will be your reaction if somebody in your team, for example, you have a female in your team, she has issues with the pregnancy and she's not doing that? What will be your advice, or what will be your reaction?
You know, I hope, I think, I would be fine with that, because, you know, I was comfortable doing that. Some people are not going to be comfortable inviting their colleagues into their house while they're lying on the couch, not able to move around. You know, for me, I just didn't care. But I would definitely get it if someone didn't want to do that. I mean, so I don't think I would see them different. They're just different. You know, they're just different. It's a choice.
If we have the choice, because it depends on personality. Sometimes Susan is obviously, you are really energetic, multitask, but there are some other people that probably are so afraid under that situation, and even they will be afraid that they will not capable of doing what they knew that you did. So how do you handle these people to not be afraid? Because maybe if they push themselves to behave like you did, it could be even worse for them, because we are different.
Yeah. So
what will be your advice? I mean, because we have young ladies in here that probably could face similar situations in the future.
Yeah, so, you know, I think the key thing is to talk, you know, to communicate. I mean, certainly I've had women on my team and men on my team, and things have happened at home, whether it be a pregnancy or not, where I'd say, you know, or a family situation, you know, their father or their mother was ill, whatever, and I would say, go home, go away, go home, and leave your computer at work, and just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. You know, you've got to deal with what life brings you and be willing to not expect everyone to be just like you, because that would be a really horrible work situation if everybody were just like you, right? And so I think you just, you tell them, but you communicate, right? They should tell you what's going on in their lives, and you say, you go deal with it, that's more important than work, because that's just the, you know, in many situations, work comes second when things like that happens.
Thank you, Susan. I have please go ahead with the question.
Hello, I'm Silvia Perez from Repsol. First of all, I want you to thank you for the presentation. I think that they were very, very nice. And it's just a general thought or comment from my side. When I receive this type of invitations, I always have like positive feelings about that, because I'm always wondering, I wanted to have your opinion about that, if this type of sessions cannot be in a way helping to contribute to differentiate the women even more in the industry. I'm really happy to see here some men faces, right? Because in the end, these topics are, I think, really, really interesting for all the audience. Why? I have never seen in a general presentation for everybody words like having or not children, kids, what are taking decisions in life, making choices. These are topics only normally reserved for women. So my question is why? If not maybe in a future event, we could have a similar session with similar topics, but with everybody here. So because I really would like to hear the opinion from the men regarding the same topics as we have discussed here. So thank you very much.
If you allowed me, I would like to answer that. So this is an open meeting. And as you see, we have females and male. So it's an open meeting. But it's more focused, the topic is related with female in geoscience and engineering. And why the EAGE has set this umbrella. This is a place that is facilitating communication and channel of participation. Because, well, we are women in geoscience and engineering, but we are located in different regions. We are really diverse, and then realities in different places is different. Also, our personalities are different. There is a sector in our community that sometimes they assume that they don't have opportunities, or even they don't have information, and that is a reality. They don't know how to go for, whom to contact to have participation. So EAGE is setting this common interest community to help the participation. The participation is networking, but the participation is also to get in contact with the board, with the EAGE, with the committees, and then you will have the opportunity to participate. You will have this channel to be in contact with these committees and have the opportunity to participate or to organize a workshop or to send requirements. So this is another channel, and it's for all of you. So use it, it's yours. So in here, there is no mandate. This is a tool, this is an opportunity to have the possibility to share, to talk like you did. So it's up to us also that we invite our colleagues, because when I said we need this space, and I work to set this space, I was saying what we need. For example, if a colleague, a female, is really shy, but she was the one writing the paper, a male colleague should not be accepting the offer to present the paper. It should help this female colleague to go and help probably on the dry runs, so she will get more confidence to present the paper. That doesn't mean that happens everywhere, but it's an example. So we need also this interaction and working in teams. Totally agree. But the idea is your choice. It's on you also to invite others, because both Susan and Bettina were talking about how we need to work with our partners, how important is to get the agreement. Yes, please, if you can get to the microphone.
Hello. Hello. I'm Ingrid Fjertoft from Statoil. Since you're a manager, Bettina, was that your name? What do you do to recruit new female managers?
Well, we do use the standard tools that our HR department has, which basically tries to, from CVs, not to make a difference where people are from and what gender they are. So pick the best ones, as simple as that. When I interview candidates, especially for leadership positions, it's a very good question that you're asking, because, of course, I have been catching myself over the years of having certain biases as well. One of them was, for example, that I was much more able to spot and identify those women who were truly committed to stay the course. Because that's all I'm looking for. Yeah? There are women who go through difficult situations, be it with partners, be it with children, etc. And especially in international roles, we are asking a lot from them. So how do I decide whether somebody will show that commitment to go as far as I want people to go, in terms of indeed sticking it out, yeah? In terms of, as I have described, going away for 6 months. And yes, you don't know, there are no guarantees. All you know is you will give it your best effort, you will give it your best shot. Are they committed to make arrangements for their children, or are they going to stand there after a week and make me responsible for their childcare? That sort of things, I am probably harsher than my male colleagues are when I pick females. What I do in terms of helping them is exactly what we have heard before about the 50%. Yeah, I look through that. I have interviewed women who told me for half an hour why they could do a little bit of that, but really they didn't know this and they had never done that. And for the next half an hour, I would tell them, look, you've done this, this, this. I know you will be perfectly able to deliver that. I have no doubt that you will perform fine. So I think in that sense, it will be a very different interview, it will be a very different experience in applying, especially for a leadership job with me. For the rest, I follow what HR puts out there, which I think is good. I'm very impressed with the tools and the mechanics today's HR systems have to actually be fair and to pick the best talent and to offer them opportunities that are actually very unbiased, less biased than I can ever be, I would say.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Bettina. Actually, I would like to follow on this logic. So you have one channel, which is your internal recruitment, and that's based on job description, as the colleague said. Maybe there are some candidates passing 75 or 80%, but you don't know this person yet. That's one channel. Which one would you prefer, this channel, or maybe an employee or a colleague within your company recommending you somebody who maybe doesn't even get to that 80% of the job description, but then it balances out because it's a personal recommendation? And a third choice, what would be your priority in terms of judging? Somebody within the company that you know, and you know the character, you know what she can or not, but she only has up to 50% of the job description, so she will or he will have to learn a lot. But then yet it has this character that you know it, and it's not just paper. How would you deal with these three scenarios to choose from?
It's tough because it does depend very much on the job. It does depend on whether I have a burning platform in especially a team leader or general manager's role. If I have that, then I need to pick a safe pair of hands. And then, quite frankly, do I make a positive gender decision or do I make something that increases the diversity? I don't care. I need to fix a talent and fix a problem, and I need the right safe pair of hands. Then I'm sometimes looking at more longer-term positions where I know I'm also prepared to invest the time to introduce an external party to the company, and I think a fresh wind will help. Then I prefer that. I look, for example, very much at the dynamics in my own leadership team. And sometimes what may be on paper the best candidate I know will be actually too much of the same in a leadership team of 10 or 12. So I may quite deliberately go for a different type of candidate. But I don't have a standard rule. It's still, there is a lot of gut feel when you appoint people into leadership position, because the biggest thing you have to realize is they have to deliver. I cannot control what they do. They have to do the job. I have to trust them to do it also when I'm not there. And most of the time I'm not there to watch what they do on a weekly basis. And I'm sure you can probably say even more about that, Susan.
So let me talk about the technical side as well. So one of my many hats at Schlumberger is I run the technical career ladder. So just like Shell and many of you have a parallel track, management and technical. And one of the things that I do, and it comes back to this 50% thing, I help men and women in the first step of the process. And I'm not going to go into the details, but the getting started, you have to create a document about yourself, basically, about why you deserve the next level on the technical career ladder. And what I have found is that, particularly for the women, I have to reach out to the ones that should be applying for the next level, particularly the more senior positions, and tell them, yeah, it's time. You can do it. You know, write your document, let me take a look at it, but I know you've got what it takes. You need to apply for the next level of recognition. And I have to push the women a lot more to do that than the men, because again, the women are more apt to say, oh, but you know, I don't have everything yet, and I need to do this, and I need to do that. I'm like, I run this thing. I know you're close enough. You know, go write it down, let's go, right? I'll help you with it. And so I think, you know, we do the right thing, both on the management side and the technical side, to encourage the women and look for the women who should be ready for the next positions, no matter which ladder they're on.
Nadia, just thank everybody.
Yeah. We thank everyone for attending our session today and participating, and we thank our speakers, and of course, Gladys, for moderating the session. And we thank also the members of the community. And we have attending here today, we have Caroline, Nuria, and Mariella somewhere, yeah. So thank you very much for all your efforts. And special thanks goes to Alexandra here for making today a success. So thank you very much for your effort, our speakers. And we would like you please to go to this website and log in with Madrid 2015 and click onto survey. And let us please know your opinion. And also we would like to hear from you if you are interested to be a member in the community. Our role as 6 members in the community ends within a month or so from now, and we are looking for new members to lead the community. So please let us know and contact us. So thank you very much. And
now there are some surprises. Stay here, stay here. So if you have time, don't leave. We can keep discussing and networking. Yeah. So the committee and the members of the committee, they have a tenure of 2 years period. So soon we will have a period of ballots. So go to the survey, and if you want to participate and help this community running and help this diversity, and also help the participation in technical aspects, in technical events, please propose yourself. And then Nadia will be finishing her tenure as chair of the committee in 1-2 months period. So please, Nadia, come here. This is a small token of appreciation for your work during this period. Well done. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now I want to thank Bettina, and if you want to come here, so maybe. So this is a small token of appreciation. Thank you so much for sharing with us your experiences, and Susan, thank you as well for coming from far away. So please, for next sessions, even we can have live sessions, recommend speakers. Because, for example, today what you see is we have Susan coming from US, from the western part, and we have Bettina from Europe. And that's what we are, I mean, it's not easy, but we are trying to coordinate also that our speakers will have different experiences, that they live in different regions, or that they belong to the different disciplines that are covered under our interdisciplinary association. So if you want, we can keep going, we can get something to drink and keep ongoing with questions, because if you have time, we have time. Probably 15 more minutes. Are you available, Bettina? Yes? Okay.
Yeah. So basically, we've been mentioning that women, for example, there's more of us in the hallways and the bathrooms. But what are we actually doing to promote women from a university and before university, so an elementary level, to actually come into this industry and join a career in kind of oil and gas, for example?
So one of the things I've gotten involved with, but I can't say that it was my idea, because I'd be lying if I said that it was. But there's a group in Houston that's starting at the middle school level to try to get kids interested in, this one's focused on geology, so not geophysics, but geology. And starting the last year of middle school and the first year of high school on through their high school years, every summer taking these kids, men and women, but it's 50-50. It's 50-50 men, women, or I'm not girls, boys at that age, on 2 to 3 week geology field trips. And so Schlumberger helps sponsor it. Shell's a big sponsor. ExxonMobil's a big sponsor, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I could name the names of probably where all of you work. Because I think we have to start early, and I don't think it's, for me, it's not just the women or girls. I think we have to start early to get kids interested in what what they ultimately need to study for oil and gas. And because if they don't start early enough, in particular, they won't have the mathematics and they won't have the science to even make that decision when they start university. And so this is a group in Houston that's really trying to start really early, and I'm sure there's similar things in other parts of the world, because I think that's what it's going to take. And so I helped with it. I mean, again, I'm a computer scientist, but I go on geology field trips. I cram the night before whatever the students are going to do the next day, because I'm then going to be leading a group, and I have to pretend like I know geology. So I'm cramming. I know you'd be very embarrassed, Caroline, but hey, as long as I know more than they do, I'm in good shape, you know. And so, but I think we all, it's a responsibility of everyone. You know, I think it's we give back, right? And it's a way to give back.
So obviously, for example, you are a student, right?
I'm doing a master's at the moment at the University of Leeds.
Okay, so because what we have to do in the near future, we are consolidating this environment of women in geoscience and engineering common interest community. And we have also the young professionals. So obviously we have to work together with both communities on working in this aspect, for example. I mean, that is from the association point of view. Now we have here people representing companies, Shell and Schlumberger. So Bettina, probably, I don't know if you want to, Shell has a program to motivate students to study geoscience and engineering.
This is for us very much on a country-by-country basis, where there are various programs going on, indeed, to bring even school children at first in contact with the industry, and then indeed people who are on the brink of making choices of what they want to study. So I don't know whether it's enough, and I guess I would be interested in your views as well on what you see could be done or should be done to make this better, because I see it a bit as a societal problem, yeah, that many of the sciences and technologies that are indeed at the heart of us cracking the energy problems of the future, yeah, there is just not enough talent in these areas. And in that sense, I can only echo what Susan already said. We all need to be ambassadors for this and not shying away from the fact that because we are working for an industry that has sometimes a bit of a mixed reputation, that we try to explain that we try to translate that. As I said, for me, it's very important to how we deal with risks and uncertainties going forward. And we have a huge role to play in this. So seeking that dialogue, facing up to it is key. But if you have any advice on what more we could do to spark more interest, I would be keen to pick that up.
May I comment on this?
Yeah, of course.
In my experience, there are two ways to go into this industry. Either one of them was mentioned, so being strong in science, so via mathematics, via geophysics, via physics. There are lots of physics that they turn out to be geophysicists, so definitely being good in science is one coincidental way maybe to go. And the second way is actually geography, the physical geography. That's the, let's say, banal, simplest way to go from school to earth science, if it's oil and gas or mining or something else. So those that they really like geography, the physical part of geography, they will finish by willing to go into our field. That's my experience in the two directions. And you're right, once you're there, then the universities should work with EAGE and EAGE, vice versa, and our communities are there to actually try to increase this cooperation. So if you have suggestions, please let us know.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that from an elementary level, there's not really much information out there about kind of joining the oil and gas sector. And I think for women, it is seen as a masculine industry, so it's harder for a woman to choose that right from the elementary level. Like I went through the geology background, and I was lucky enough that my school did geology, so I kind of knew about geology, and it was then through university that the oil and gas industry was explained to me, and not necessarily through the elementary level. But yeah, thanks.
I have a question, if I may. So, and I will ask both speakers. what is your opinion about the perception that we must consistently outperform our email counterparts to obtain the same career treatment or same positions? Because that is kind of a statement, right? We have to outperform and demonstrate that we are capable, and that outperform could be double or triple. Is a perception or is a reality? Bettina and then Susan.
It's a difficult one. I think if I go back 30 years, then indeed women were so unique and so exotic that you were expected to perform at least above average in order to be credible. When I look at it now, and I often have conversations with my husband about it, and then he giggles and he says, "You're still like this, you're still awfully task-focused." And I think it is something that characterizes many of my female colleagues, that partly because, especially when we have families, when we have to juggle all these different balls that we heard about, the only way to get through this is a very solid and strict task focus. And we expect to be rewarded for that. And we do forget that there is a lot of other things out there that make especially large corporations and conglomerates function. And that is exactly the network. And it is not just a network like the one that you have in here, where people can support each other in informal ways. It is also the networks within the company. And I know they used to talk about, the old boys network, and they go for a beer in the end and whatever. They don't do that nowadays anymore either, just as little as we do it. But all these modern networks, the virtual communication systems that we have, they allow us to play much more strongly in this field. And I think sometimes we actually should consciously move away from the task focus and say, okay, it's probably only a 70 or 80% solution, not a 90 or 100, but I'll spend some time in talking to these guys, because sometimes that opens doors for the future. So I know this is a bit of a long-winded answer, but where I see this issue still very, very sort of current and very important in terms of women advancing in large companies. It is indeed around not doing enough networking and believing too much that fulfilling the best task will give you the right progress or answer.
So, Bettina, the question, the second question, is a reality or a perception that we have to outperform our counterparts male?
I think most companies have performance systems that should not make that necessary. So I would say nowadays it's the outlier rather than the norm.
Yeah, so I'll just echo some of what Bettina was saying. I don't think that we have to outperform anymore. Perhaps we did at the beginning. But again, just to touch on her points, as women, we have to make sure that we're visible. It's not enough to just complete whatever your objectives are for the year and do them well, and then expect that somebody's going to notice. And I don't mean, at every meeting, by the way, I did that great thing, and by the way, I did that, but make sure that your work is known and that it's visible what you're doing, and that you do have these networks within the company, because sometimes the people considered for the next position, it might come through our very formal systems, and it may just as well be, I saw her a couple of weeks ago, and she was really good in that presentation, and she clearly knew her technical stuff really well. I think she'd be very good in this job. And this was not opening up any kind of magic human resources tool. It's because, I heard her speaking. She was out there in front of people. Let's take a chance on her.
Another question please.
My name is Suzanne as well, and I have a 3-year-old daughter, And I'm from Brazil, from the University of Campinas. And since I have this small daughter, I've been thinking a lot about what makes us different from men. And I'm quite convinced that the biggest issue is that we are mothers. And this is a very complicated issue. I would like to ask you what kind of policies big companies on oil industries are making towards making balance between having mothers on their employees. I mean, once I've heard a good interview with Johnson & Johnson president, which is a woman in Brazil, and she told something very interesting, that she perceived that the timing of women are different from men timing. I mean, when men are 30 years old, they are on the top of their careers, and they can make trainee programs for being leaders. And when women are 30 years old, we are mothers of young children that needs us to breastfeed and, well, women tasks. So she promoted trainee programs for being managers for women with 40 years old and more. And while normal companies usually makes this kind of progression on career for 30 years old employees, and so that's why we have mostly men on top career. So I would another interesting thing that I've heard is that on other industries, some women that are mothers, they are able to choose a smaller amount of hours of work, so they can work like 4 hours a day, and they earn less. I mean, I agree with you, Susan, that we are able to be good mothers and to work a lot and to work hard, and we are good on that. But maybe I just wouldn't want to. I would like to stay more time with my daughter. And I agree with Bettina. I'm very happy with your when you said that it's a society issue. It's not our issue ourselves, it's a society. So I think the whole society should think about this. And so why doesn't big companies wouldn't offer to their women employees, like, oh, okay, while you have a small kid in your house, you can work 4 hours a day and you will earn less for that. No problem, we are gonna hire 2 women to make the work of 1. This is no problem. I would like to have this chance, and I want. And a second question, this is for you. Why is that?
The first question for the speakers.
I think I got it. So in Schlumberger, and you know, you answer for Shell, but certainly we have women who choose in their kids' younger years to go to part-time work. And that's perfectly acceptable. And then as their kids have gotten older, they've come back when they choose to work full-time. And so that's a company policy that moms or dads can choose to do that. And that's something, you know, we're talking about the women a lot, but one of the changes that I've seen, this isn't your question, but I'm going to talk anyway. One of the changes that I've seen at work is how much more involved the men are with their kids now than what I saw. You know, I've been in the company for 25 years, what I saw 25 years ago. So there's something, it's societally changing, if that's a word, which I think is good for, you know, either gender. But what do y'all do?
Yeah, I think the simple answer is, in my department you can do that. As long as you can arrange it with your team leader, anything is basically possible. But in my current department, we don't have real sort of front-facing operational roles. There are roles which you cannot do like this, and so there are choice points. What struck me more was actually what you mentioned first, in terms of indeed the age and the stepping up into these leadership roles. There is indeed, we're out of sync on that. and I certainly have experienced that very strongly in my own career. There were basically about 8 years of my life where what mattered was to stay in a strong, challenging technical role. A career, what on earth is that? I'm not interested. Yeah, I need the balance, and full-time work and all that made it impossible to strive for more for these years. I was, in a sense, fortunate that once this period was over, when I woke up and realized that all my bosses were peers of mine, ex-peers of mine, that were quite frankly not more capable, in some cases clearly less capable than I would have been to do their job. And I didn't really like that. So when I woke up to this, and when I realized that I had gotten behind, then I was very fortunate to have bosses and mentors who recognized that and who were prepared to stand up and basically fast track some of my development. And it is something that is very close to my heart. In some cases in my own department, I very carefully watch women who have their first child, because I know that leads to a flattening in our lives as far as company progression is concerned. It is a good thing in hindsight. I can only advise you, take that time. Make sure you have that balance. Your children are only once 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years old. There is many other jobs you can do later. As I said, in 31 years, you have to know what is important in a given year and what is important over the totality. So don't lose sight of it further down the line. But it is something that I watch, that I monitor, and I sometimes intervene very heavily to make sure, indeed, females with high potential, that they do get a career progression sometimes ahead of time, because I know I want them to step back in there when they come back after their maternity leave. So sometimes, as female sort of supervisor, you have some tricks to play, and we do them. Trust me.
Oh yes, that would
yes,
be.
We need to go.
That would be very short, Bettina. That's for you. I mean, I really love what you just said, and I think that's a very good suggestion. Are you also training men to have this attitude towards the ladies working in their team? I hope you do, because that's really something interesting.
We do have these conversations, but before I was talking about my biases as well, so I don't always find it easy, and I know they accept, certainly in my leadership team and my extended leadership team, they had to see quite a few changes in terms of the gender mix over these past 4 or 5 years. Do we face up to these conversations heads on? Not yet, no. I think you're touching a nerve here.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. That was brilliant.
Really short. I think we have to plan probably for longer sessions. There are many questions, please.
Okay, this is a short one. I'm Clara Correa from Repsol. There are a couple of cliches that I have heard in other kind of similar talks. And one is that for a woman, in order to have a career in oil and gas, I would like your opinion, if you have to stay within the same company, you have to stay this or not change too much, because I think there's a perception that for women you have first to demonstrate your value and then you get promoted, and sometimes for men it's the potential is recognized and then they get promoted before showing that potential. So I've heard in other talks that one advice was, okay, don't change too much company, have 1 or 2 along your careers, because you need to be known, you need to have your network, you need to see people, need to know your work so that you can get ahead. And I just want to have your opinion on that.
Susan can take the question. Can you answer that?
So if I understood that, does one need to stay in the same company because of the network and you get recognized for the promotions, et cetera, et cetera? I would say no. So Schlumberger was my 5th company. I'd always gotten bored after 2 or 3 years because I think I have ADD before we knew that it was called ADD, and I would get bored and switch companies. And so I came into Schlumberger as an mid-career hire, experienced hire. I don't think that hurt me any in my career because I kind of learned how one works in a company, so I don't think that would hurt you if you decided to leave your company and go somewhere else, because you've learned how to network, how to be smart, how to get the job done, and you've proven yourself, and company number 2 or company number 3 is hiring you because of what you've already done, and so you're already coming in at a higher place than you would have before. So I don't think it hurts. I mean, why have we stayed? I think it's because we've both been successful in our careers and have found the challenges challenging enough and interesting enough to stay. So we've chosen to stay. But I don't know.
Yeah, nothing much to add, really. I mean, for me, Shell was the only company that I ever worked for, but moving from country to country still meant that you actually changed quite a lot. But I did certainly benefit from the fact that the network I had, that wherever I went, if there was somebody who had ever known me before, especially in those early days, that helped enormously. What I would say, if you do change, we still have to be careful indeed that when women sometimes get hired, especially into significantly higher positions by other companies, it can turn out to be an alibi position, indeed, for just meeting internal targets somewhere. So I think one needs to be very alert to that. If your own goals and aspirations are clear and you say, I don't care, I will make that work for me because it offers me exactly the development that I'm looking for, then that's fine. But if you are uncertain because you know you will need a lot of support and a lot of help to get integrated in a new company culture and new teams and building new networks, then hesitate, I would say. That would be my only sort of advice.
Thank you. So, thank you again, Susan, Bettina, for your insights, for sharing the experience. I want to conclude by saying that there are good news. In some companies, there are already systems in place to help this integration and also to have a performance that are more fair, no doubt. But probably next year we can talk about that. Not in all the companies we have the same scenario, and not in every country. So even sometimes when you change company, it could be a great opportunity to get the recognition that probably you haven't get for 5-10 years in your previous company. So I think that what is important is, like Bettina was saying, if you have the opportunity to analyze options and to set the roadmap, that would be fantastic. Sometimes we don't have the pleasure of having that time or different options. So, and Susan was saying that she was hoping that we will leave this session at least with one contribution. So I think there are many things that is up to, that we have the power to control. And probably is to think about these assumptions. When we have opportunities, is that maybe we don't want, the situation could be that I do not want that role, or I cannot succeed in that role. That is another assumption sometimes. Why? Because sometimes we don't have role models in the companies. Because that is referred to the career corporate ladder. So when we have this ladder, we know now that there are more women at to certain management level. What happened on the top of that ladder? Do we have all the opportunities? Do we want to be in that position? What that will imply? So these are the kind of things that we need to consider. And the last assumption sometimes is that probably we have a low self-esteem and we don't consider our own, we don't consider ourselves capable of taking that risk. It's like your daughter was telling you, Bettina, Mom, you can do that. So that is another good news. There are some things that we can, for which we have the control. So think about that. And of course, there is Baya and there is legacy, but things are improving. So I hope you can join the community and come again to this session. Please complete the survey and tell us if you want to have these kind of sessions during the conference or during workshops in your region, and talk to your regional managers. You have the LinkedIn, an area where you can submit your questions, and you have the committee that will serve your needs. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And thank you all the members of the EAGE office that they are helping with all these settings. Thank you.